We have to go back to the argument that Phil was trying to make there, and he's actually duplicit in his argument. In one place he's saying he supports the public safety aspect, but on another case he's saying, oh well, it shouldn't be just allowed to happen at will.
That's not duplicitous.
I think there needs to be clarity here. Public safety must be paramount in this case, and that is why I believe these decisions have been taken. And I do have to go back to the point. Marian Price was obviously was released on license or a pardon, as Phil says, is disputed, in 1980. Now it's quite clear that was on license, and there is the opportunity to put her back in prison at any stage during the time of her life if she revokes that license.
It's the opportunity. I'm not too sure I like the use of the word opportunity. The issue
I have to say, Phil, you don't seem to like much of anything of what I say.
No, well, I think that your argument is absolutely flawed. I mean, the bottom line about public safety is this. Of course, I would be the first person to argue for public safety in all situations, but we cannot rely on people behind closed doors making arbitrary decisions. We have to have a fair and open justice system. That is what we're signed up to. That's what democracy is all about. We cannot have security services driving the force of the judiciary, and we can't rely on that. And when you talk, Tom, I have to say that the kind of phrases that you use, assuming, that presumption, all of those kind of comments, obviously, these are issues where you as a politician are putting your trust in security services over and above what we have in our democratic society, which is the separation of powers so that the judiciary themselves make those decisions on our behalf. And the final comment I would want to make on public safety is, if we're really concerned about cases like this, we have to tread very, very lightly, because when we put people away who we are saying we have intelligence on, that has an impact on the community. That has an impact within our wider society. In actual fact, in putting people in prison without trial, in detaining them without them knowing the circumstances of their detention, can in actual fact lead to greater unrest in our communities and jeopardize public safety even further. So it's not a duplicitous argument at all. I believe in the wider remit of public safety and the understanding of how the rule of law connects to that. And this, in these instances, regardless of these two people's past, we have to go through a process of that is due, that is accepted, and that is part of our democratic society, including the separation of powers. And I am, to be frank, I'm absolutely shocked that a senior politician could sign up to and agree with any kind of procedure that enables security services via a Minister of State to create a case against people that nobody can see. That completely denies the objective of what our legal system and our judicial system is about.
I will say, Phil, on that, I will put my trust in security services assessments. We have to. They are put there to do that. They are put there to give the politicians and the senior political representatives that guidance, that information and that intelligence that is required on these types of people. We as politicians do not have any other opportunity to assess that. That is why there must be some reliance put on those security services and their briefings and their intelligence.
Tom, the logical extension of your argument is that internment worked.
No, indeed, I'm not saying that whatsoever, but let's not forget, these are in specific cases, and I'm not personalising. These are in specific cases. This is not widespread, and what I'm saying is we must rely on these intelligence services, because that's what they're put there to do.
Did internment work, or was it a failure?
Sorry, is that to me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying it worked at all, but it was an operation at the time that was attempted to help the situation. It may not have helped it at that particular time, but I think we're dealing with a totally different scenario here. We're dealing with a totally different situation here at this time, and we're dealing with two individuals whom the intelligence services obviously believe it would be not in the best interest of public safety to release them.
Phil, is there ever a time when it's okay to detain people without trial? I was reading a piece by Robert Lambert of the University of St Andrews Andrews, and he said he opposed detention without trial, but he said it was right to detain British supporters of Nazi Germany during the Second World War. So is it just a case of degrees or personal opinion?
I think every case has to be taken on its merits. Of course, there will be a situation where people need to be withdrawn from society without trial for a period of time where there is a known and clear threat, and that threat is established. But you cannot detain people indefinitely without trial. That's the core issue. One of these two people has been in prison for 2 years. The other has been in prison for 1 year. This is it's a completely unacceptable use of those powers. The logic of Tom's position, which is the dangerous logic, is that somehow, and for some reason that I can't fathom, he is willing to put his faith as a politician within the security service's judgment, who then advise politicians in cases such as this, without there being any clear line of accountability. Now, again, this is another key principle of our system, both legal accountability and political accountability. And my feeling here is that, again, it's another thin end of a wedge. It is actually saying that there comes a time when we just throw up all of our commitment to democratic accountability within our society, and we turn to a process which is run by people whose identity we don't know. It's behind the scenes, and we give them these extensive powers. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't withdraw people from society, but the principles are swift, appropriate, due process justice, and that is what has not happened in these cases.
I'm sorry, Phil, but you're again arguing against yourself. Of course, I have said, and I have relayed this, we have to put our faith in intelligence services on occasions, and there is no doubt about that. That is what they are there for. If we didn't have those intelligence services, how would we ever have made any captures in the past? How would we ever have dealt with terrorists in the past?
Of course.
So you're actually
Tom.
being duplicit in what you're saying,
no,
Phil. I have to say, all you're trying to do is discredit me and discredit the security services for what they're doing, and you're failing abysmally.
Okay, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Phil Scraton, Tom Elliott, thanks very much indeed. A few of your texts on the subject of detention. Does Tom know Marian was transferred from prison to an outside hospital due to ill health? She is a threat to no one. Stephen in Belfast says also on the subject of detention, what a depressing situation for Northern Ireland when we're represented by somebody like Mr. Elliott, and unfortunately he's not alone. Eddie in Belfast says Tom Elliott reflects old unionist thinking. If you're wearing a green jumper, you're obviously guilty. An